Welcome to Strung Out, the podcast that looks at life through the lens of an artist. Your host is the artist, writer, and musician, Martin Lawrence McCormack. Now here's Marty.
Welcome to Strung Out, and this is our second podcast about winter camping. I've got my expert, Kate Vogel, who has spent many years out there in the wild, the great wild, and we just heard some geese flying in, and we're not that far away. Actually, full disclosure, we're out in the suburbs of Chicago, but this is like the perfect area where you can go camping. You can get out into the outdoors, and Kate's a big advocate of the idea that we need to connect with nature, but connect at times of the year which are not like the typical time, right? So,
Absolutely. I mean, and if you look at, these major national parks that we have, you look at a Yellowstone in June, you're waiting hours.
Right.
You're sitting in line
the
forever.
idiots that are looking at the buffalo and
Absolutely.
yeah.
And you're not really getting
Okay.
that. Yeah, but it is open in January. It's open in February, March.
Before we're going to talk a little bit about winter camping, some of the stuff that's or camping in general, some of the stuff that people get squeamish about. But my question before we jump into that is, what do you recommend? State parks first, or go for like a national park? If you're let's just say you're we're assuming that you're living in a place where it snows, okay?
Right. Well, yeah, but you can travel. You can
Sure.
you can travel to get to any of those.
You like the outer, the boundary waters?
Yeah, I like everywhere around the Great Lakes. I mean,
Okay.
I think it is a beautiful, especially the boundary waters. This is a place that, both America and Canada have worked together to designate as a wildlife place that will remain in hopes forever, but that we are supposed to still partake in. I definitely see humans, I'm a North American primate. I belong here. And I need to be able to interact with my woods, my lakes, my animals. And we have to be, and it's back to John Muir, we have to be good stewards of the environment. And we are not good stewards of the environment if we're never actually seeing it, right? If you're out there and you're signing a petition to, save this type of eagle from those woods, I would encourage you to go to those woods, see why it's so important, see why that is such a beautiful thing to see that particular bird's place in the whole ecosystem.
But a lot of Americans, we dismiss winter because we're working, or we don't, aside from the holiday vacation, we have a tendency, guilty as charged, to fly down to someplace warm. But really, here we are, and we've been out for a while now in the cold, and it's actually quite nice.
Right? Yes.
So,
if you are prepared and you are warm, you will enjoy the outdoors just as much in the cold, and maybe even more because there's no bugs.
well, we're going to continue along with what we were talking about in the last podcast, which, Kate and I want you to listen, watch the last podcast, because she talks about the, some of the materials that you need. But I want to talk about the one thing that people always kind of get a little squeamish about is, I don't want to go camping because
There's no bathroom?
There's no bathroom. and so, let's talk a little bit about that, because summertime, I guess I could take my trowel and dig a slit trench.
Sure you can.
Winter.
So bathrooms. Yeah, I'll back up a little bit. Let's talk about bathrooms with camping in general. So when you go to your local state park, right, and you've set up your camp, you've set up your tent, or even if you're in an RV, what they have there available to you generally are porta potties or those single stall things. That's at most state parks, right? If you've been camping, you've probably seen those porta potties. I would say that the issue with those are simply that people do not know how to use them. So, for PSA on porta potties, they actually have a structural design. So you go into a porta potty, you use it, and then a lot of people leave that lid open. They think they need to vent that, but that's not how a porta potty is designed. You are to close the lid, and if you exit the porta potty and look up, you'll see that there's a pipe at the top that actually vents the smell. So a lot of people don't like porta potties, but it's only because we're all using them wrong. They do have an actual way, and if they are used properly by your group, that smell will dissipate well above your heads and they'll be used as intended. I, however, have no problem just going outside.
Okay.
That's not an issue. A lot of the places that I go aren't really, especially in the wintertime, you're not gonna dig a trench.
All right.
It's just not gonna happen. As far as hygiene, so let's talk about pee. One of the things that happens in winter camping, especially for females, I have no idea how it is for men, but as I squat to pee, that pee being hot for my body freezes instantly,
Right.
creating shards of pee that then can grow in height back up to the level of my bottom.
Right.
Yes.
So it could be a painful experience if you're like, are you moving around then?
Yeah, so you kind of have to shuffle a bit and kind of
Okay.
make it in a line, because otherwise you will create a pee stack.
A pee
Right
stack.
back up to your
Is
butt.
that-
that also works
Is that
for
an
the
actual
other
term
as well.
for winter camping?
You know, I don't know. I don't know
Alright.
if anyone else uses pee stack. I call mine a pee stack. We don't normally talk
Well, you
about
heard it here first then, folks. Kate Vogel,
Makes pee stacks.
watch out for the pee stacks, okay? And you'll know somebody's been to your camp. But in all seriousness, okay, peeing is one thing.
It is very hard to keep yourself clean.
And
yes.
for men, it's easy. I mean, lean against a tree, find something. But, and that's the easier part of it. But the other one,
yeah.
toilet paper. Do you haul that in? I mean, what do you do? How do you?
I personally do. So I haul in wet wipes,
Okay.
just for my own personal hygiene. They do freeze. It's not comfortable.
Okay.
So you're gonna want to try to keep a pack of wet wipes. Usually I keep it in a Ziploc and I'll keep it in, like, close to my body.
Keep it a little thawed.
To keep it a little
That
warm.
makes sense.
Occasionally that doesn't work out and it winds up freezing, and then I
All
have
right.
a hunk of solid
ice.
to wipe myself
Okay,
with.
but
Yeah,
All right.
one of the things, as far as, if you can keep them, and you can, there's not a whole lot of naked that you're going to want to be when it's 2 degrees outside.
yes.
So, especially when you don't have shelter, like I'm standing next to my hammock if I'm changing clothes. As far as like laundering and washing clothes, something that I definitely learned from Arctic peoples, the Inuit, you can absolutely wash clothes in snow and freezing and these stains, right? So I could right now take this, and I've actually done this, got ketchup on this, and if
Okay.
it were freezing out here, I absolutely could wash it in the snow and freeze it, and it would shake off. The
So-
entire stain would just fall off back into the snow.
One thing we didn't talk about in the last podcast, but like, how many days? What is the longest amount of time you've been out?
A little 7 to 10, about 10 days.
10 days. Okay, so 10 days camping.
You acclimate at that point. You don't even want to leave.
You don't want to leave.
No,
Yeah.
I don't anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure it's beautiful because you're moving along. You're probably going from one campsite to the other.
Yes. And if you're on canoeing portages
Yeah.
or portaging, if anybody wants to
Well, especially we're
add
talking,
it in the comments, guys, if you think it's portaging or portaging.
We're talking about the Boundary Waters, which I'm embarrassed to say I haven't been to, but my brothers have, but on my bucket list. But I know, I understand you go from one campsite to another campsite, and here you have all this stuff. But you're traveling lightly. From the last podcast, we talked about
As light as possible, which
Okay.
sometimes can still wind up being 60 to 80 pounds, but it's as
Okay.
light as possible. Usually about 30 that's on my back, and I might be pulling another 30 or 40.
It's I know a lot of people say, okay, I'm out camping. I don't really care about washing my hair or
Okay.
scrubbing my face. Well, let's say you do, and let's get back to the number 2 situation. How do you drop trowel or whatever in cold weather? Is there any sort of thing that the Native Americans or people that have lived out in this, how did they deal with that?
I'm not really certain how they did. As far as being able to kind of, I find the biggest problem with that is just being able to stay warm while it's happening.
Okay.
Because you've now exposed yourself and there's wind, and it's very cold. You do freeze quite, and you can get chapped buttocks if you're having, an issue out there.
Okay.
The wind coming by and it'll chap you.
Is there anything out on the market that's geared?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so let's talk about that, because
absolutely
that might be the trade-off,
Right. So if I wish to stay warm while peeing, they have made things, and at least the one that I own is called a shiwi. Okay. This is a rubber funnel that I would, and I'll just show you, I can put it right here.
Okay.
And so I would place a rubber funnel within my pants and catch my urine, and just like as if I had a male appendage, it would go away. It goes away from me. It's a funnel.
Like a funnel.
Yes, it's a rubber funnel, and
So
you cup it along your junk, and then it shoots the pee away from your body.
So you're minimizing exposure just by putting that there.
Yes.
Okay, in your area. Is there anything?
Anyone who wants to purchase a shiwi, please practice in your home shower.
Okay.
There is a learning curve.
All right, that makes a lot of sense.
But once you use them really well, they're just a little piece of rubber.
Do they have anything on the market? Like, I could imagine, almost like a dress or something that you could put around you.
They have toilet tents, Marty.
They are toilet tents.
Yes.
Okay.
So
are they real tents, or are they like what I just described?
It's going to be, if you've ever been out to the beach in the summertime and had one of those flip-up tents, like a sunshade.
Yeah.
It's very much like a sunshade. Imagine like a square, pretty much just enough room for your body.
Okay.
And then what you do is you go to Home Depot and you buy just a regular bucket.
Right.
Then in the hole in the bucket, you just cut a top, make a top, put kitty litter in it.
Okay.
But the only reason why I don't like that is because then I have to haul out that kitty litter.
Yeah, that's a lot of hauling. But
I don't want to haul out that kitty litter. I don't mind hauling in the bathroom. I just don't want to haul out the.
So let's say you have a toilet tent, and that gives you a little shelter. You're still going to be a little cold, but at least you're protected to some degree.
It's also a privacy consideration. If privacy is your consideration, toilet tents are great.
Do you with your pee is one thing, but like poo and that sort of thing, is it okay to cover that, to bury that to some
It depends
degree?
on where you are. A lot of places have very, very strict regulations on what you can do with your urine and your fecal matter, and like where things can be kept, how deep you need to dig a trench. Everywhere has different rules, so definitely check them out. A lot of the places that I go are just so remote that it's just not go find my poop to find me for it.
Well, what's the commonsensical thing to do? Not that, is it to just like, if you do your business, put snow over it, just let nature kind of...
Again, Marty, I believe I'm a North American primate and I have a right to poop.
Okay.
But not everybody thinks that way.
Sure.
And there is definitely this elation of humans beyond animals.
Right.
And that, we're to leave them separate, and this cutoff of, you can't go there because birds live there, or because bears live. No, but I'm also supposed to live there.
But let's just say, state parks are going to have facilities, but let's go for the real natural
Right, and definitely in your state park, if you are in a state park or in a national park, definitely check their rules and regulations for what to do with their bathroom.
I think we've covered enough. I mean, I think if you're going to poo out in the boundary waters or somewhere where no human or animals probably will get to it within a day or so,
right,
you're okay. So that's good to know. But I like that idea of a little bathroom tent or something like that, just mainly from the windbreak.
Yeah.
But
you get a little bit of a windbreak from it. Yeah.
Today we're filming, and again it's
a lovely day for a constitutional out here. So.
It's 30 degrees outside.
No issues at all.
And we're so you'll survive. So we're going to take a little break on this. Right now we're talking about winter camping with our expert Kate Vogel. You're on Strung Out.
Hello, this is Polly Chase with artwork by Martin McCormack. You'll recognize this painting, titled Centurions, from the newsletter. It is acrylic on canvas and measures 20 by 24. The vibrancy of this piece comes from Marty's use of two complementary colors, red and green, and a saturated cool blue sky that balances the red or implied heat of the scene. You'll notice that Marty applies his acrylics in a manner that produces a realistic image with a pointillist texture and color play. By placing those complementary colors nearly one on top of the other, he can achieve deep shadow areas with dazzling effect. Using his own photograph as a reference, Marty preserves the open, arid pathways that invite the viewer to venture among the prickly cacti. You can take a longer look at this piece and see more of Marty's artwork at martinmccormack.com.
Searching I know for a little mother load of joy, a lean-to living, barely scraping by. Just another shovel load could show a little mother load of joy. All I need is a gleam and a rumbling, tumbling stream, and if the panic just right, maybe tonight my dream striking it rich on a little mother load of joy. I will work my claim, find me a vein, and then hill there sits a little mother load of joy. Maybe I'm just falling for old scratches Floyd, mining my soul for a little mother load of joy. Just right, maybe tonight my dream will be a striking it rich on a little mother load of joy. Others tried and failed, their happiness destroyed, but I will stake my claim for a little mother load of joy. Yeah,
Hey, we're back. We're back here, and we're talking about winter camping. And one of the things we talked about in the last podcast, which made a lot of sense, is the idea of going out there into the woods with a bunch of friends and or family. I love that family notion. That would take a lot of work on my part to try to get my wife and daughter to do it, but I would love to do it. But one thing we haven't talked about is that's kind of serious, especially if you're going to go into like the Boundary Waters or the Quetico, like they say, or Yellowstone or something. What do you bring in terms of first aid? How do you deal with that possible emergency?
So, I don't mean to be gritty about it, but to be honest, if anything in that first aid kit is going to help you, you're not hurt that bad. And if you are hurt that bad, nothing in that kit's going to help you.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry, that's my genuine bleed.
you're...
I mean, anything that you're buying on the market, right?
Okay.
Except for maybe some bleed stop.
Right.
I carry bleed stop, but outside of that, I mean, none of that's, I mean, if you're going to be injured, it will likely be a much more serious injury.
Okay.
But as far as bringing things to like bind up broken bones, things like that, yeah, we do that. I mean, if you fell on the trail and you broke your bone, you could be evacuated. There's definitely been medical emergencies out there.
All right.
Where someone has had heart issues,
Okay.
and it was an 8-mile hike just to get them to where fire services could get it. So we loaded them up on a sled and hiked them out of the woods.
Okay, so you've
To
had
where
this happen where somebody
to
had
where
heart.
emergency services
okay.
can get them. You just try to get them to wherever help can get them. So now's a really good time to talk about how do you call those emergency services, right?
Right.
It's not so much in this day and age an issue about signal, but when I'm out there in -2, I can literally look at my phone and watch the battery go from 100 to 67 to 26, just sitting in my hand in the cold. So
Okay.
completely
That's a good
useless
point.
that I have signal if my iPhone battery refuses to be a phone.
Yeah.
So generally when I'm out there, the only time when I actually have access to using my phone, I will put it in my -45 sleeping bag with me, warm it up, and then I will have the battery usage. If I try to stand out there in -2, -3 and use my phone, the battery will just continue to drain. It's really difficult to use those kind of things, and that works the same with anything, with your batteries, with your satellite. A lot of times we put the batteries inside of coolers with hand warmers
Okay.
to try to keep them to temperature.
And when you
Because-
talk about hand warmers, are these the electric, like little battery operated, or just?
Yeah, sometimes
Okay.
those, but sometimes even just the regular charcoal packs will work. The problem with the charcoal packs is if it's cold enough, they freeze. Number 2, they like being next to a body, they like being moved around, and they have to
Got
have
it.
some exposure to air. So when you're popping them in a cooler, that's not a whole lot of exposure to air to work.
Okay.
So sometimes that doesn't work as well. So I do prefer the battery operated ones, that with the little hand warmers, and then that kind of they keep themselves warm. Like, the battery warmers keep themselves and my other batteries warm.
So, for you, you're like, my understanding, getting this right, like if you keep your phone warm, keep it close to you,
Yeah, keep it close to you.
and
If you need it for an emergency, definitely keep it close to you.
and you've had emergencies. Well,
Yeah.
so that's good for us to not be coy about this. But the typical, I just burned my damn hand in the picking up something
Sure.
from the fire.
And that might be a serious injury to someone. I'm sorry if I neglect thinking that a burn is a serious injury. But I have a lot of them. I'm a little gritty. So,
Yeah.
you are going to get burned out of there. Let's talk about one of the major burns that happens out during winter camping. So you need to have kind of perpetually boiling water, right?
Okay, yeah.
Both so that you have something to drink and also so that you can warm your meals. Just so you can wash. I mean, anything that you need. You pretty much have to have a pretty consistent fire and a pretty consistent boiling water.
Okay.
So we let it go out kind of at night while we're asleep. First thing we do in the morning, get that fire back up and going. And one of the main injuries burn-wise that I've seen is what happens is you lift that lid off that boiling water and it is steam. And it is continuous steam. So you cannot see at what level that water is, right? It might be near
Right.
the bottom of the pan. It might be near the top of the pan, and you won't be able to see. So we try to really encourage everybody, don't get in there with a little ladle or don't try to dip your cup in or you'll be real sorry.
Yeah.
Definitely with winter camping and burns, you might be the last to know how injured you are too. I've definitely had like blisters and things that
Oh, wow.
felt like nothing because my hands were cold. But but yeah, you definitely have a long handled ladle just so that you're not running the risk of getting a scalding. Before we take a break, I just want to go ahead and let you know one of the biggest things that took me by surprise as far as the dangers of winter camping was that, so when I come in and I've found a clearing, maybe I've hiked 10, 12 miles and I'm like, oh, this looks like a perfect place. I find perfect trees for my hammock and I set up, and the first thing that I need to do is make a fire. And so I might have a foot or two of snow, and the first thing I need to do is dig a hole. And no matter how big around that I dig that hole, inevitably, once my fire starts, and my fire's been going for a day or so, the sides of that hole turn into sheets of ice that are angled towards the fire.
Okay.
And so everybody coming into that fire circle has to be very, very careful, or you will literally slide right into a big bonfire.
Oh, wow. So that's, another thing that I don't go camping with me. Go camp.
I never thought about it first until I experienced it, and I
Right.
went, "Oh my gosh, this is really
Right.
it is a danger. It becomes ice because it heats up, and then it starts falling down, and then now it's angled towards the fire. So if your footing isn't sure, you can wind up in the fire."
Well, there's so many things, with winter camping that you would just take for granted with summer.
Sure.
But I do, and you keep saying, no bugs and everything like that. But you have all these other potential dangers. But
You have all these other potential beauties as well. I mean,
Yeah.
you're not going to be in, the most beautiful blizzard of your life on a frozen lake in August.
that's so true. So we're going to take a little break right here. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little more along those lines and
The good stuff.
Good stuff, and just see what other kind of advice Kate might have to give you. We're with Kate Vogel, outdoors expert here. We're talking winter camping on Strung Out.
Hey, want to show your support of Martin's artist endeavors? Buy Me a Coffee is an online site that makes supporting Marty easy. In just a few taps, you can make a payment of any amount, and no account is needed. You can also decide to become an ongoing supporter. Go to martinmccormack.com and click on the words Support Martin. Let's help Martin keep it all caffeinated.
Well, we have been out here shooting podcasts for a good length of time, and it's as nice and sunny as it is. You can hear the wind going through these trees, and I do have to say there's something kind of awesome about being out in the wintertime. I think part of it is that feeling of just being exposed to something that's a little more, as you say, the North American primate. It's something that you feel like you're a little more at risk. Is that how you feel about this stuff?
Just a little wilder. I mean, I definitely feel like I'm meant to be here. I'm meant to be a part of nature. It can be kind of unsure, especially as we kind of house ourselves up and, go from one building with climate control to another building that's climate controlled. It's a very false sense of what is real and what's natural. And I definitely feel like this beauty and this majesty of being a North American primate when I'm alone in my hammock and, there's a lake of ice crashing into each other. It makes the most majestic sounds, like, a big crashes and pings and creaks, and you feel smaller. And I feel a bit of comfort actually knowing that the world's much bigger than me.
Since we're doing this podcast from the Chicago area, give me like 3 locations that you could do in a day's drive or a half a day. Let's just say that you feel like the first time camper could just get a great experience out of it.
Sure, I think you could. I mean, anywhere up, especially in the wintertime, anywhere once you get into like central Wisconsin, up here, Pearson and Green Bay, any of that, you're gonna get the snow. You're going to have the woods. Once, it's quiet around this time. That's one of the things I like about winter camping. There's not that many people out, but you absolutely, I mean, 3 or 4 hours from Chicago, any of those parks up there, anywhere that you can camp up in central Wisconsin, northern Wisconsin, they're all really, really lovely, and it'll give you a really nice sense of what it is to be out in the wintertime with, having the safety of home.
And the biggest thing probably is you notice we haven't talked about frostbite because on the last podcast, Kate, laid out very clearly that you have to have the right goods.
Keep your blood warm, yeah.
Keep your blood warm. What do you recommend? Do REI or what do you say?
I'm a very a cheapskate kind of person, so I would definitely recommend gear trade. I would recommend buying other people's used gear. A lot of times people with significantly more wealth than me go out on a one-time expedition, and then all of their stuff winds up on gear trade from their personal assistant or winds up at Goodwill from their personal assistant.
Well, we're going to leave it at that. We want to thank you so much for being out here in the wild with us, and we're going to talk to you guys next week on Strung Out.
Thanks, Strung Out fans.
Thank you for listening. For more information about this show or a transcript, visit martinmccormack.com. While there, sign up for our newsletter. See you next time on Strung Out.
It's all so wrong, this pain we feel makes no sense at all. A swan song wasn't part of the deal.